starring a bald Jeremy Piven, came out in 1994, 10 years before the first season of The Apprentice and a full 24 years before Barry Weiss's piece hit the New York Times, these complaints were shop-worn cliches. So is the IDW just a rebranding of old-style cultural conservatism? Not exactly, although you might be forgiven for thinking so when you notice that Ben Shapiro is an IDW member in good standing. Shapiro is a religious conservative who believes that Palestinian rights can be disregarded because, as he says in one YouTube clip, God gave Israel to the Jewish people. In the video entitled Ben Shapiro, Why Jews Vote Leftist, a young Shapiro expresses amazement and disgust that most American Jews don't share this belief. Like any good fundamentalist, Shapiro is firmly opposed to letting women control their own bodies. He invariably refers to abortion as, quote, killing babies. He regularly speaks out against, quote, open borders, gun control, socialism, and even redistributive taxation. In 2003, 2 years after a teenaged Shapiro began writing a nationally syndicated column, the conservative obsession with teen prodigies never ceases to amaze, he used it to cheer on the invasion of Iraq. Shapiro could be grouped together with Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity as naturally as he is with the IDW comrades in arms, Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson. It's probably Harris who genuinely does part ways with the Limbaughs and Hannitys of the world on a number of core issues, who marks the difference between the IDW and the more old-fashioned right. The Stanford and UCLA-educated neuroscientist is a warmonger and an apologist for the status quo in many ways I'll explore as the book goes on. But he has conventionally liberal views on domestic policy issues, ranging from abortion to closing the gun show loophole. He supported Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump in the 2016 election, and where Ben Shapiro naively believes that God himself shares his attitudes toward women and Palestinians, Harris is fiercely secular. Long before there was an intellectual dark web, Harris belonged to a group of intellectuals who collectively branded themselves the New Atheists. While many of my major intellectual influences are in fact atheists of the old-school materialist tradition who analyze religion as a cultural force determined by economics and social relations, I was always critical of the obsessive view of atheism as an innately liberating belief system that superseded the material conditions that we all live in and that shape our lives. The New Atheists, and Harris in particular, spent a lot of time obsessing over the problem that people believe, quote, bad things, even as they ignored the real-world forces that might generate those bad beliefs, and in turn, adopted much of the reactionary worldview of their Christian counterparts in the Bush administration. But we will explore Harris's fixation on, quote, bad ideas later in the book. For now, it's suffice to say that his prime intellectual contribution to New Atheism was to put a scholarly sheen on the belligerent, hysterical, and ultimately imperial neoconservative foreign policy agenda that defined the American right's worldview in the Bush era. Seen from this perspective, his current chummy collaboration with Shapiro is not as surprising as it might otherwise seem. Still, this move to the IDW milieu certainly represents a step down from the New Atheist scene. Christopher Hitchens was a witty and insightful writer whose post-9/11 turn to the right was preceded by a long and honorable history on the left. Richard Dawkins is not just a schmuck on Twitter, he's also a real scientist and a gifted popularizer of evolutionary biology. Daniel Dennett was writing serious academic philosophy long before he started writing for a popular audience. Compare Hitchens, Dawkins, and Dennett to Harris's new club, which includes failed stand-up comic Dave Rubin as a charter member. In the original New York Times piece, Weiss credulously quotes Rubin when he called himself and the rest of the IDW, quote, just a crew of people trying to have the kind of important conversations that the mainstream media won't. If you watch my show, you're undoubtedly reading that quote in the Rubin voice, which should make the experience much more satisfying. Now, Rubin and I...